On Monday, May 1st, 1893, the big news in the Globe-Democrat that morning was about the bad weather, damaging storms. Rain came down like a deluge, the headline said. A cloudburst washes out miles of Frisco track. In that same edition were Theodore Dreiser's reviews of the openings of two plays the night before. La Belle Russe at Hagen's Opera House, in which he said the popular actress Miss Jeffries Lewis appeared. And at Pope's Theater, Dreiser told readers the curtain went up on a full house for Uncle Tom's Cabin. Problem was he was wrong on all counts. The curtain did not go up at Pope's and the house was empty. The famous actress wasn't on stage at Hagen's, neither was anybody else. Both theatrical troupes were stuck on trains that couldn't make it into St. Louis because of the washed-out tracks. The plays had not opened, but the Globe-Democrat reviewed them just the same. So here's what happened. Dreiser wrote up the reviews in advance because he thought he had a pretty good idea of what he was going to see. But before he could go to the theaters on that Sunday night, his city editor sent him out on what Dreiser said was kind of a wild goose chase, the report of a streetcar robbery. Didn't turn out to be anything. But by the time he got back downtown, it was late. The theaters were closed. The reviews went to press, and Dreiser went to bed. Rival papers, and this was a competitive market, had a field day ridiculing the Globe and what one paper called its psychic approach to coverage. The Post that afternoon headlined a column, "Imaginative Journalism." Some accounts say Dreiser was fired. Dreiser says once he realized what he'd done, he resigned before he could be fired. Keep in mind, though, that in the days before moving pictures, there was a lot of live theater, and a lot of it was cranked out for mass consumption, and frankly, it was predictable stuff. Now, Dreiser had seen Jeffries Lewis perform before and wrote or predicted that in this play her work was unquestionably artistic and brilliant, and that the audience seemed to appreciate her efforts thoroughly. He often knew the actors in the plays and the audience's tastes. He had plenty of advance publicity. He also had a tight deadline back at the Globe-Democrat building. He needed to get those reviews in that night for the morning edition. So he was, as other critics were doing, cutting some corners. In Dreiser's day, one of the most recycled ideas was Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was a groundbreaking book in 1852, but by 1893, it had been staged so many times in so many different ways, they were just called Tom shows. And Dreiser accurately referred to it, without seeing it, as a time-worn, barnstorming production. But it had a gimmick designed to sell tickets. Cast in the role of Uncle Tom, or maybe miscast, was the well-known boxer Peter Jackson, who was known as the Black Prince. And between acts, he would give a boxing exhibition. So Dreiser felt he was on solid ground writing in advance that Peter Jackson doesn't really act, but his pugilistic ability is certainly remarkable and very entertaining to observe. And when the play actually did open, the Post-Dispatch review said pretty much the same thing, and it was a packed house. So if the play had opened on Sunday night, Dreiser would have dodged a bullet. Instead, he was out of a job, but not really disgraced. He was almost immediately hired by the rival St. Louis Republic, one of the papers that had poked fun at his made-up reviews. When he left St. Louis in 1894, Theodore Dreiser said he left his youth behind him. He ended up in New York. Sister Carrie came out in 1900, but the publisher had second thoughts about its immoral subject matter and wouldn't publicize it. It would be years before Dreiser achieved recognition and success. But he never hid what he had done in St. Louis. In his autobiography entitled Newspaper Days, he wrote about how he reviewed plays that hadn't opened. This Week in History in 1893.